Seneca once wrote, "He who is brave is free." And if there is one thing women crave more than anything else, it is the presence of a man who is free, free from neediness, free from approval-seeking, free from weakness disguised as kindness. The Stoics lived by a set of internal principles that made them mentally untouchable and emotionally grounded. That is why they mastered attraction without ever chasing it. In this video, you're going to learn the 7 exact traits that nice guys never have, but that women secretly crave more than anything. If you stay until the end, you won't just understand women better, you'll understand yourself. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment your story, and share this video if you recognize yourself in any of what you hear. Chapter 1. Self-Respect. A man without self-respect is invisible to women, no matter how kind, polite, generous, or accommodating he tries to be. You can hold the door open, compliment her dress, listen for hours, and offer your undivided attention. But if you don't carry yourself with genuine self-respect, none of it matters. From the outside, it may look like you're winning, you're agreeable, you never stir conflict, you give more than you take. Yet inside, you're shrinking your own worth to fit someone else's expectations. The truth most men don't realize is this: agreeableness can make you likable, but it doesn't make you desirable. Women instinctively recognize value, and value always begins with self-respect. They don't crave a man who's constantly bending to please them, they crave a man who remains unmoved in his identity, even when it would be easier to cave. Nice guys often confuse being accommodating with being valuable. But there's a massive difference. A man of value offers respect and kindness from a position of abundance, not need. He listens deeply and responds thoughtfully, but he never sacrifices his own needs or tampers his beliefs simply to keep the peace. When a man speaks from a place of self-respect, his words carry weight, even if he's whispering. His presence calms storms rather than igniting them. By contrast, the so-called nice guy sacrifices authenticity at every turn in hopes of approval. He trims his edges, filters his truth, and polishes his personality till there's nothing real left to notice. The reason most nice guys fail with women is painfully simple: they don't respect themselves enough to demand more from the people they allow into their lives. They accept breadcrumbs, mistaking them for a full meal. They suppress their real desires, avoid tough conversations, and walk on eggshells just to avoid rocking the boat. They betray their own values just to keep someone from leaving. And women notice. Even if they can't articulate it, they feel it deep in their instincts. They sense the hollowness when a man is performing goodwill rather than living it. They know when a man has no spine. And once they perceive that weakness, attraction dissolves like smoke in the wind. A man who truly respects himself doesn't tolerate disrespect, not from others, and not from himself. He doesn't chase after women who are half-interested or inconsistent. He doesn't throw his dignity out the window just to be liked. He doesn't beg for attention, and he sure as hell doesn't audition for love. He stands still, rooted in his worth, and lets the right people step into his life on his terms. That means setting boundaries early, communicating what he values, what he will and will not accept, and then holding firm when those boundaries are tested. It's not bold gestures or grand pronouncements that signal self-respect, it's those quiet moments when he chooses integrity over expedience, spin over spectacle. That kind of man doesn't need to prove anything. His energy speaks before he does. It's in his tone of voice, calm and confident. It's in the way he carries himself, shoulders back, eyes focused, no apology in his presence. It's in his boundaries, clearly drawn and firmly protected. It's in his standards, unshaken by loneliness or temptation. And women feel all of it. They're drawn to it. Because deep down, they crave a man who lives by a code. A man who makes decisions based on principle, not pressure. A man who chooses integrity over popularity and strength over appeasement. Self-respect isn't loud. It isn't arrogant or boastful. It's quiet, unshakable dignity. The kind of dignity that doesn't flinch when tested. And that's exactly what nice guys lack. The nice guy believes that love is something to be earned through sacrifice, that if he gives more, compromises more, and sacrifices his own authenticity, he'll eventually be chosen. But it rarely works that way. Why? Because women don't fall for men who sacrifice themselves, they fall for men who stand for themselves. They don't admire a man who calms his roar, they admire the lion who roars to protect his pride. The Stoic understands that love, respect, and desire are not begged for, they're attracted through authenticity, through consistency, through the courage to be disliked rather than be disrespected. When a man honors himself, he teaches others how to treat him. When he doesn't, he invites mistreatment. Imagine two scenarios. In one, a man ghostwrites his life, obsessed with crafting the perfect script to please others. In the other, a man recalls his own story with pride, unself-conscious and unwavering. Which one would you want to follow, to trust, to stand beside? Women feel the difference on a subconscious level. They sense the authenticity like they can smell it on the breeze. If you don't respect yourself, you might get a woman's attention, maybe even her appreciation. But you will never earn her craving. And that's the truth nice guys need to face. You're not losing because you're too kind. You're losing because you've forgotten that your value doesn't come from how much you give, it comes from how much you honor who you are. Self-respect is the foundation. Without it, nothing you do will ever feel like enough. With it, you won't need to prove anything at all. Developing self-respect means practicing small acts of honor every day. It means saying no when your gut screams that a request crosses your boundaries, even if it comes from someone you care about. It means speaking your truth in conversation, even when silence would be easier. It means investing time in your passions and refusing to apologize for the goals that matter to you. It means walking away from relationships that chip away at your core values. Each of these choices is a brick in the fortress of your self-respect, and the stronger that fortress, the more magnetic your presence becomes. When you embrace this path, you transform into a man who stands apart. Not by prideful distancing, but by rooted confidence. Women won't chase you, they'll be drawn into the orbit of your self-assured life. They'll lean in to see what you stand for, because they know a man of self-respect stands for something far greater than himself. That's irresistible. And in that space, real connection flourishes, built on mutual respect, clear boundaries, and the knowledge that each person brings their full, unfiltered self to the table. So demand more of yourself first. Cultivate your purpose, sharpen your principles, and honor your own voice. Every time you choose integrity over coercion, you reinforce the core of your self-respect. With each choice, you send a clear message: you deserve respect, and you will respect yourself above all else. That message echoes louder and farther than any compliment or grand gesture ever could. And it's the signal women have been waiting to hear. Because at the end of the day, self-respect isn't just about how you treat yourself, it's the foundation upon which all meaningful relationships are built. Chapter 2: Emotional Stability. Nice guys often confuse emotional openness with emotional instability. They've been taught, sometimes by pop culture, sometimes by misguided advice, that vulnerability means spilling every thought, every feeling, every fear. So they overshare. They apologize excessively. They cry on cue, not because it's genuine, but because they think it will win empathy, attention, or approval. What they don't realize is that this kind of emotional chaos doesn't build connection, it repels it. It doesn't make a woman feel close, it makes her feel like she has to babysit a man who can't manage his own inner world. What women actually crave is emotional stability. Not the absence of feelings, but the presence of composure. A man who can stay grounded when everything feels uncertain. A man who can hold space for her storm without becoming one himself. A man who doesn't unravel the moment she needs space, the moment she's cold, or the moment the world doesn't validate him. That kind of steadiness is rare. And it's magnetic. Emotional instability screams immaturity. It says, I don't have a grip on myself, so I'm going to make you responsible for how I feel. And that is one of the fastest ways to kill attraction. Because if you can't manage your own emotional state, there's no way you can make her feel safe around you. You become more of a burden than a partner. And women don't fall for burdens, they fall for strength. Attraction, at its core, is not just about looks or charm. It's about how you make her feel in your presence. And nothing creates more desire than the sense that a man is solid, that he's centered, unshakable, reliable. Nice guys don't offer this. They live on edge. Their mood swings with the slightest shift in attention. A delayed text response throws them into doubt. A disagreement sends them into over-explaining mode. They seek constant reassurance, constant validation, and when they don't get it, they collapse. This isn't emotional depth, it's emotional dependency. Nice guys haven't learned to regulate themselves. They react instead of respond. They explode or shut down. They interpret every neutral moment as rejection and every silence as abandonment. And because they fear disapproval so deeply, they try to compensate by becoming overly available, overly emotional, overly too nice. But there's nothing attractive about a man who doesn't know where he ends and where the approval of others begins. That's not connection, it's insecurity. Stoic men operate differently. They don't shut off emotions, but they master them. They don't need to raise their voice to make a point. They don't flinch when things don't go their way. They understand that emotional strength doesn't mean suppressing your feelings, it means owning them. It means feeling the storm without being swept away by it. They know how to pause, assess, and choose the most grounded response. That's what makes them trustworthy, not because they always agree, but because they're consistent, predictable, emotionally durable. And that calmness, that stillness, it's addictive. To a woman, it says, you can bring your chaos here, it won't break me. You can have your bad days, your doubts, your fears, I won't crumble under the weight of them. I'm not going to yell, guilt trip you, or vanish. I'm right here, steady. That message, even if unspoken, creates a level of trust that few men ever earn. Now, emotional stability doesn't mean becoming robotic or emotionally unavailable. It doesn't mean hiding your humanity behind a cold exterior. It means being reliable, internally and externally. It means your emotions serve you, not the other way around. When you say you're okay, you mean it. When you're frustrated, you express it with clarity, not aggression. When something hurts, you don't weaponize it, you process it. Reliability is rare in a world where most people are chasing validation, addicted to drama, and living reactively. Most men try so hard to be liked that they forget how to be respected. And here's the truth, a woman might like the emotional guy at first. He seems sweet, open, vulnerable. But over time, if she senses that he can't regulate himself, if she feels like she has to carry his emotions along with her own, her respect fades. And when respect fades, desire follows. On the other hand, a man who's emotionally stable becomes an anchor. He's the guy she turns to when things fall apart. He's the guy who doesn't just say, I've got you, he proves it with his presence, his consistency, and his calm. He doesn't seek emotional caretaking. He doesn't throw tantrums or withdraw when he doesn't get his way. He holds the line. He leads, emotionally, from a place of grounded strength. And that kind of man? That's the man she trusts with her secrets. That's the man she leans into when life gets heavy. That's the man she doesn't just date, she follows. Because emotional stability doesn't just make you more attractive. It makes you unforgettable. Chapter 3: Decisiveness. Indecision is a silent killer of attraction. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It creeps in slowly, and by the time a man notices, the woman is already gone, mentally, emotionally, and eventually, physically. Nice guys often struggle with making even the smallest decisions: where to eat, what movie to watch, when to make a move. They don't take the wheel. They defer. They constantly ask, "What do you want to do?" Not because they're being considerate, but because they're terrified. Terrified of choosing wrong. Terrified of disapproval. Terrified of doing anything that might rattle the fragile illusion of approval they think is keeping her around. But what women actually crave, what stirs something deep in their core, is leadership. Not control. Not dictatorship, but clear, grounded, masculine leadership. Decisiveness. The ability to stand still in the storm and say, "This is where we're going." That single act demonstrates more than confidence. It shows self-trust. It shows clarity. It shows that you're a man with a spine and a direction, not someone waiting to be told where to go. When a woman sees you hesitate, stall, or constantly second-guess yourself, her attraction doesn't just decline, it disappears. It withers. Because here's the hard truth: she doesn't want to be the one steering the relationship. She doesn't want to constantly prop you up, push you forward, or drag you out of indecision. She wants to relax. She wants to feel safe in your direction. She wants to exhale into your strength. And if she can't do that, she slowly starts looking elsewhere, emotionally or otherwise. Stoic men understand a core principle: action is superior to perfection. Life isn't a chessboard where every move must be calculated to death. Sometimes, the move simply needs to be made. The Stoic man doesn't sit around waiting for signs, permission, or the perfect moment. He observes, he chooses, and he executes. That's it. He trusts his judgment and accepts the consequences of his decisions like a man. Decisiveness isn't about always being right, it's about always being responsible. It's about owning the choice, good or bad, and moving forward from there without flinching. This mindset is what creates gravity. This is what pulls people, especially women, toward you. Because a decisive man is rare. A decisive man is bold. He doesn't live his life walking on eggshells or constantly polling others for approval. He makes the call and stands by it. And that is intoxicating. It tells her that if things go sideways, you won't crumble. You won't panic. You'll act. You'll adapt. You'll lead. Nice guys destroy attraction by hesitating, by asking for permission, by apologizing for taking up space. Stoic men ignite desire by making decisions, by standing tall, by owning their path. Leadership isn't about controlling others, it's about controlling yourself. It's about being the grounded presence she can count on. And that kind of man? That man doesn't chase attraction. He commands it. Chapter 4: Independence and Passion. One of the fastest, most surefire ways to annihilate attraction is to make a woman the sun your world orbits around. Nice guys do this instinctively. Not because they're evil, but because they've been conditioned to believe that devotion means sacrifice, and that sacrifice means losing yourself to prove your worth. So they cancel their plans when she calls. They distance themselves from their friends. They quietly let their passions rot in the background, trading in their own fire just to keep her warm. They think that giving up their life for a woman is the ultimate romantic gesture. But in doing so, they extinguish the very flame that drew her in to begin with. Why does this happen? Because nice guys confuse infatuation with meaning. They believe that if they make her happy enough, present enough, available enough, they'll finally be chosen. But attraction doesn't work that way. The moment you make her your everything, she begins to feel like nothing. Because instead of being part of your vibrant, purposeful life, she becomes the whole point of it. And no woman wants to carry that kind of emotional burden. It doesn't make her feel loved, it makes her feel trapped. Here's the hard truth: women don't want to be your mission. They want to witness it. They want to be swept up in the momentum of your path, not replace it. And if you abandon that path, even for her, you'll lose her. Not because she's ungrateful, not because she's shallow, but because you've proven that your sense of self was conditional, that your backbone could be bent for affection, that your fire was never real, it was performative, temporary, fragile. A Stoic man is fundamentally different. He doesn't seek a woman to complete him, he seeks one who complements his direction. He moves with purpose. He wakes up with things to do, problems to solve, a vision to pursue. His mission isn't optional, it's integral to who he is. And that grounded energy is magnetic. A woman doesn't want a man who sits around waiting for her texts. She wants a man who's so locked in on his purpose that when he gives her attention, she feels how deliberate it is. Not needy, not desperate, but intentional. Because he had to pause something meaningful to share that moment with her. Independence says, I can walk away at any time and still thrive. That's power. That's what creates respect. Passion says, there's something in my life that lights me up more than you ever could. And while that may sound harsh to the uninitiated, to a grounded woman, it's intoxicating. Because she doesn't want to replace your purpose, she wants to join a man who already burns with it. A man whose life is already rich and full and meaningful. That way, her presence isn't about filling a void, it's about amplifying the intensity of a fire that's already blazing. And here's where Stoicism becomes critical. The Stoic doesn't seek external validation to define his worth. His discipline, his mission, his code of life, it all comes from within. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his meditations to impress anyone. He wrote them as reminders of who he must be, regardless of circumstance. That's what makes Stoic independence unshakable. It's not rebellion. It's not detachment. It's alignment. It's clarity. It's the refusal to let fleeting emotions override the long-term direction of your soul. Passion is not just about career or goals, it's about energy. It's about having something in your life that demands the best of you. It could be building a business, mastering a craft, dedicating yourself to your fitness, mentoring others, or even creating art that moves people. Whatever it is, it's something that forces you to grow. Something that burns away your weakness and refines your discipline. And that process of constantly becoming more than you were yesterday is incredibly attractive. Because it shows you're alive in a world full of men who are merely surviving. Women feel this at a cellular level. When you speak about your mission, they don't just hear the words, they feel the energy behind them. And that energy tells them everything. It says, this man has direction. He knows where he's going. He isn't waiting for love to give him purpose, he brings purpose to everything he loves. That's leadership. That's masculine gravity. And that's the kind of man who doesn't chase women, he attracts them. Nice guys wait. They wait for approval, for attention, for love. They put their lives on pause, hoping to be chosen. They believe if they're good enough, nice enough, available enough, something magical will happen. But that's not leadership. That's emotional stagnation. And it repels women because it lacks depth. It lacks challenge. It lacks the friction that creates attraction. A woman doesn't want to babysit a man's self-esteem. She wants to feel the momentum of his life pulling her into something bigger than both of them. A Stoic man lives regardless. He doesn't ask for permission to pursue his passions. He doesn't sacrifice his path for temporary intimacy. He loves deeply, but he never loses himself in the process. And that's what makes him unforgettable. Because when a woman enters his life, she doesn't feel like he's finally complete. She feels like she's been invited into something extraordinary. That invitation is rare. And that rarity is what creates devotion. The truth is, the world is full of men who've dimmed their own light in hopes of attracting love. But the man who burns brightly on his own, who doesn't need anyone to feel alive, is the one they remember. Because he never begged. He never wavered. He simply lived so passionately, so authentically, so fearlessly, that love couldn't help but find him. Chapter 5: Assertiveness. Nice guys often live their entire lives in quiet hesitation. They're polite, agreeable, and conflict-avoidant to a fault. They think being liked is the highest achievement, so they say yes when they want to say no, they smile when they're annoyed, and they disappear into the background when their voice matters most. They believe that harmony is maintained by avoiding friction, not realizing that silence in key moments doesn't build peace, it builds resentment. But women don't crave passivity. They crave assertiveness. They crave a man who can express his truth without aggression, who can state his needs without guilt, and who can protect his space without apology. Assertiveness isn't about domination. It's not about overpowering others or always getting your way. It's about ownership of your time, your energy, your values, and your voice. A Stoic man doesn't yell, manipulate, or posture to get what he wants. He speaks with calm authority because he knows who he is and what he stands for. His confidence doesn't need to be loud. It shows in his presence, in his clarity, in his boundaries. That kind of presence is rare. It's rare because most men fear disapproval more than they value integrity. They'd rather be liked than be true. But when you're assertive, you stop seeking approval, you seek alignment. You stop shrinking to avoid tension and start expanding to live with purpose. You no longer mold yourself to fit into other people's expectations. You shape your world through your own standards and boundaries. You stop waiting for permission to be yourself. And a woman feels that. She feels the difference between a man who tolerates everything and a man who protects his peace. And she gravitates to the latter because it signals strength. It signals maturity. It tells her that you have a backbone, not just a smile. Nice guys suppress their frustration until it leaks out in unhealthy ways, passive-aggressive comments, cold silences, or sudden emotional breakdowns that feel out of character. But Stoic men deal with things as they arise. They meet discomfort with clarity. They communicate with intention. And they act with firmness. They don't make threats, they make decisions. Being assertive means you're not afraid to say what you want. You're not afraid to speak up when something crosses the line. And more importantly, you're not afraid to walk away if your needs are continually dismissed. You don't beg to be chosen. You choose yourself first. That edge, that calm willingness to lose what doesn't align, is what creates respect. And respect is what turns interest into desire. Respect is the seed from which attraction, trust, and intimacy grow. Assertiveness isn't a performance, it's a reflection of inner security. When you live from that place, you stop trying to prove yourself. You stop playing roles. And that kind of authenticity is magnetic. Because in a world full of men who bend, break, and blur themselves to be liked, the man who speaks truth with grace stands out like fire in the cold. Be that fire. Chapter 6. Presence. There is nothing more intoxicating to a woman than a man who is fully present. Not half there. Not zoning in and out. Not mentally rehearsing what to say next. But grounded, calm, and completely here. No phone. No nervous glancing around the room. No energy scattered across 100 worries. Just a focused presence that says, I'm right here. With you. And nothing else matters right now. That level of presence doesn't just create connection, it creates electricity. Nice guys rarely master this. Why? Because they're stuck in their own heads. They're not having a conversation, they're running simulations. Did I say that right? Is she bored? Should I touch her now or wait? They're overanalyzing her facial expressions, tone shifts, and body language like they're reading a damn manual. But while they're calculating, they're not connecting. She can feel it. And what she feels is insecurity. And nothing kills attraction faster than a man who's clearly second-guessing himself at every step. Presence is the antidote to that. It radiates certainty, even when you say little. Because a man who is present isn't trying to impress. He's not chasing a result. He's not performing. He's simply being. And in that being, he becomes magnetic. Think of a great actor in a powerful role. He doesn't try to act, he is the role. That's the energy women feel when a man embodies true presence. It's subtle, but it's powerful. And it's unforgettable. Presence is not a trick. It's a discipline. It's something the Stoics understood better than most. Marcus Aurelius said, confine yourself to the present. He wasn't advocating ignorance of the past or blindness to the future. He was saying that the present is the only place where power lives. You can't act in the past. You can't touch the future. But you can command this moment. Right here. Right now. And when you do that, you stop being a man lost in thought and become a man that commands the room without saying a word. Women are wired to detect presence. It's not just about eye contact or body language, it's energetic. They feel whether you're truly listening or just waiting for your turn to speak. They sense if your attention is clear or clouded. They notice when your eyes wander, when your focus slips, when your mind checks out. And when they feel you've disappeared, even if your body is still in front of them, they begin to disengage too. Emotionally, mentally, physically, the connection fractures. But when you're locked in, when your attention is laser-focused, that's when everything changes. The conversation slows down. The energy between you becomes dense, alive. She starts leaning in, laughing more, touching you without realizing it. Because presence isn't neutral, it's seductive. It creates a space where she feels seen. Not just looked at, seen. And that is one of the rarest experiences a woman can have. In a world full of noise, of men scrolling their phones, swiping through options, and thinking 10 steps ahead, being seen is irresistible. This is what Stoic men train for. They eliminate distractions. They don't run from silence. They aren't afraid of pauses in the conversation. Because they aren't performing, they're experiencing. They understand that everything good, connection, intimacy, respect, starts with attention. And that attention is a choice. You can either give it away to your worries, or you can give it fully to the person in front of you. One leads to forgettable encounters. The other leads to unforgettable ones. Nice guys live in a fog. Their minds are scattered across memories of the past and fantasies of the future. They're trying to calculate the best outcome, which only proves they don't believe in their own value. But Stoic men? They live in real time. They don't worry about whether they're saying the perfect thing. They trust that their presence is the perfect thing. And that trust, that inner stillness, that's what women crave more than any clever line or rehearsed routine. When you're truly present, you become a mirror. You reflect back to her a version of herself that feels seen, heard, understood. And when a woman feels that, she doesn't want the moment to end. She leans in because she feels safe. Not safe in a boring way, but safe in a way that makes her open, vulnerable, and emotionally engaged. Presence is the silent seduction. It bypasses logic. It bypasses filters. It speaks directly to her feminine nervous system. And it tells her, you can relax here. You can be real here. In a world full of men pretending to be cool, chasing dopamine, and escaping the moment, the man who stays in the moment becomes unforgettable. His presence becomes a kind of gravity. It draws people in. It quiets the chaos around him. It makes her feel things that can't be explained and don't need to be. So if you want to be remembered, if you want to be felt, don't try harder. Don't talk more. Don't chase the perfect strategy. Just show up. Fully. Fearlessly. With nothing to prove and nothing to hide. Because a man who is grounded in the now becomes a man who owns the moment, and every woman in it will notice. Chapter 7. Integrity. Nice guys are shapeshifters. They contort themselves to fit what they think others want. With women, they'll say whatever they believe she wants to hear. They'll mimic her opinions, fake interest in her hobbies, and suppress their real views just to avoid conflict or rejection. They confuse politeness with honesty, and they call their dishonesty being nice. But there's nothing noble about being a liar in disguise. Women might not notice it at first, especially if they're flattered by the attention, but eventually, the cracks show. And when they do, the illusion collapses. Integrity is what separates a man who fades from memory from the man she never forgets. It's the final, most vital trait, and it holds everything else together. A man with integrity lives by a personal code, not social approval. He does what he says he's going to do. He keeps promises, even when it's inconvenient. He speaks the truth, not to be cruel, but because he respects reality more than he fears consequences. And perhaps most importantly, he holds himself to the same standards he expects from others. No hypocrisy. No double standards. No excuses. This kind of man is rare. And he's rare for one reason: integrity requires courage. It's easy to fake interest in things to win someone over. It's easy to bend your values just to avoid being alone. But integrity demands that you risk rejection in order to stay true to yourself. It demands that you put your authenticity above temporary approval. And most men can't do it. They'll sacrifice who they are just to get attention. But that attention always comes with an expiration date. Because sooner or later, the real you will come out. And if who you are doesn't match who you pretended to be, the attraction dies instantly. Women are incredibly intuitive. They might not call out your lack of integrity directly, but they'll feel it. They'll feel the inconsistencies in your words and your actions. They'll sense that something doesn't line up. And once they lose trust, there is no coming back. Because a woman doesn't just want a man who excites her, she wants a man she can trust. Trust with her body. Trust with her emotions. Trust with her future. That kind of trust isn't built on gameplaying or flattery. It's built on integrity. It's built on the quiet strength of a man who doesn't need to fake a single thing. Stoic men never pretend. They don't wear social masks to fit in or seduce. They know that what is gained through deceit will eventually rot. And they understand that truth, even when it costs something in the short term, always pays dividends in the long run. Their consistency becomes their power. Their word becomes law. And that level of reliability is magnetic to a woman who's tired of boys hiding behind masks. A man of integrity is solid. You can feel it in his presence. He doesn't talk too much, but when he speaks, it matters. He doesn't overpromise because he knows every promise is a contract with his own soul. And when he fails, he owns it, not with shame, but with responsibility. That's what makes him trustworthy. That's what makes him irresistible. Because in a world full of contradictions, the man who stands in complete alignment with his words, his values, and his actions, he becomes a lighthouse. Steady. Rare. Impossible to ignore. Nice guys bend until they break. They lose themselves trying to be liked. But the Stoic? He stands. He might not be liked by everyone, but the ones who do like him for who he truly is. And that's the kind of man women don't just want, they respect, they crave, and they remember. Attraction isn't a game. It's not about tricks, lines, or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about becoming a man who stands so firmly in his values that the world can't help but notice. Nice guys are forgotten because they make themselves forgettable. They seek approval instead of truth. They chase instead of attract. But a Stoic man, a man who embodies self-respect, emotional strength, decisiveness, independence, and purpose, he doesn't have to prove anything. His presence says it all. If you want to be that man, stop asking how to make women like you. Start asking how to become someone you respect. Because once you do, the rest follows naturally and powerfully. Thank you for watching. If this hit something deep inside you, like the video, subscribe for more Stoic wisdom, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, remember, a man who controls himself controls everything.